like marshmallows? They're really good if they're nicely melted on top of that Thanksgiving tray of the candied yams. Oh, so delicious. But there has been quite the controversy about marshmallows for a while. In fact, this goes back to before 2000, the year 2000. There are records from 1998 about whether or not marshmallows are candy. Are they candy? Do we consider them candy? Now, a bunch of different states have tried to kind of, work this out in, a bunch of different little ways. For example, in Indiana, marshmallows or marshmallow cream is tax exempt. But a bag of marshmallows incurs a 7% sales tax. So what's the difference? Michigan, marshmallows and marshmallow cream, both taxed. New York, this has been a pretty big thing in New York. Imagine, New York's just, the epicenter of crazy and psychotic legislation. But New York City, marshmallows covered in chocolate and or candy are taxed. Whereas other marshmallows are considered baking ingredients. Okay, so here's kind of the, generalization of this. Big marshmallows are considered candy, okay? Therefore, they are taxed. Whereas small marshmallows, little tiny, hot chocolate marshmallows, are considered food or baking ingredients, which are exempt from taxes. Marshmallow cream is also exempt from taxes. Also considered a baking ingredient or quote unquote food. Now, I'm not really bringing this up to talk about marshmallows. Okay, marshmallows are good. They're fine. Everybody loves them. I guess not everybody, right? But most people like them. They're good in hot chocolate. They're good in, various types of coffee kind of inventions. And they make a delicious treat if baked on top of, candied yams and or whatever else. So they're pretty good. I like them. I don't like them raw. My kid fucking loves them raw. She'll eat them by the handfuls. But the point here is, this is bizarre. This is a big deal. This last year, 2020, this last Thanksgiving, this kind of turned into quite an issue. And this isn't the first year this has been happening. This has been happening for years, decades. So why is this such a fucking problem? Well, let's talk about the tax law for a second, shall we? The tax law is a pretty ridiculously large document. There's kind of this rumor that goes around that it's about 80,000 pages long, right? But it is pretty big. As a matter of fact, it's about 2,600 pages long. That's a pretty thick little book, right? I mean, let's take a look here. My corn, or I'm sorry, not corn. This Corn and Corn. No, Corn and Corn is the handbook for scientists and engineers. This is Calculus, an Intuitive and Physical Approach by Morris Klein. It's a pretty fucking big book, right? Let's see how many pages this has in it. This is actually a pretty good demonstration here. This has 943, so that'll be 44, 944 pages. Okay, so we're talking about two of these. Oh, about a little less than three of these altogether. Dunk, dunk, dunk. So, a book, well, Let's get scientifical. All right, that's 5 centimeters. So double that to 10 centimeters. Triple to 15. And we're just going to knock a little bit off because it isn't, 2,600. So maybe about a third down from there, right? So, okay, so we're talking about a book. You know what? Let's get this. Let's really put the visuals on this, okay? That's not quite there yet. Let's grab one more Gödel Escher Bach. There we go. Gödel Escher Bach. All right. Ready? Okay, so let's try to get a little bit more precise in this. So about to write. There we go. Okay, we're talking about a book about that thick. That's the fucking tax code. Okay? That's hefty, right? That's a nightmare for anybody. I mean, not just to read, right? But to understand, comprehend, implement. I mean, something that big is just, it just borders insanity. Anybody. We're talking about years of schooling just to understand that thing. And it differs state by state, right? There are different tax laws in each state. It's a pretty fucking big mess. The fact that this idea that the tax code is about 70,000 pages long came from the CCH's Federal Tax Code Reporter, right? Which is actually a really useful resource for, lawyers and accountants and other people that have to deal with tax code law. But it's not tax code. It contains tax code, but it's not tax code, okay? It is an incredibly massive collection of documents, but the tax code is just kind of a small little section of that whole thing. So yeah, this isn't the tax code, but it is extremely useful. It contains things like legislative history, treasury regulations, editorial commentary, and collected court cases on a variety of topics. So that's kind of where that whole thing came from, right? But it still is pretty big. It's still an incredibly massive document, and given the legalese it is written in, it's incredibly complicated to decipher, understand, and implement. So PolitiFact, right, kind of the fact-checking sort of website, right? They have determined that in 1955, the IRS tax code stood at about 409,000 words. That's still pretty big. And it has grown to 2.4 million words. With an M, million words, which is about six times as large as it was in 1955 and about twice as large as it was in 1985. So the U.S. tax code is technically termed Title 26, okay? And it is about 6,550 pages long, which we already kind of covered. Now, the Taxpayer Advocate Service has stated that the U.S. tax code has more than tripled since 1975, which, right, given what we've been talking about, makes sense. They also reported in 2012, at the time of their report, the document was 4 million words long. 4 million words long. This is an incredibly massive document, which is about a 286% increase since 2001. That's just 11 years. Now, Senator Roy Blunt, who I totally agree with in his assessment, stated to the Kansas City Star, quote, "Outdated tax policies are stifling our economy and taking money out of the pockets of hard-working Missourians." Now, of course, he's a senator of Missouri, so that's where his kind of focus was. But I fully agree with this. The tax code, tax law, the IRS, the paperwork involved with every single business and citizen in the entire country it's a joke. It's a waste of time. Because, and as I have tried to, hammer home as much as possible, money increases systemic entropy, and this is just one of the many ways this happens. When you have a system based on money, when you have a social system where every single interaction, every single exchange is governed by a paywall, you are wasting energy, resources, time, right? You are wasting all, even materials, as far as paperwork, as far as storage space on computers, whatever the case. It's all being wasted. It's an incredible mess. The tax code, taxes, the IRS, the whole thing is just, it is like entropy incarnate. It is like the epitome of just wastefulness. So let me get this straight. What is a tax? A tax is where the government basically enacts some law where they say that you are required to hand over a certain amount of your intellectual property, your physical labor, your products that you create, and the products that you consume. You're not just getting taxed for things that you sell, you're getting taxed for things that you purchase. On top of that, you are required to deal with those taxes. It's on you. You've got to keep track of your books. You've got to sit down and make sure purchase tax preparation software, or hire experts in this, CPAs, whatever the case is, whatever your thing is, right? But certified public accountants are typically the kind of go-to resource for taking care of taxes. But if we were to talk about how a STEM economy were to work, how an economy that is driven by ensuring that each individual's intrinsic motivation is just fired up and going, right? Because it's a motivation issue. It really comes down to motivation. Then you can extract the money from the system and not have to worry about anything that money brings to the table. Some of my earlier simulations, and this has been confirmed by an economist, right? I brought this to him. I'm like, look, this is what my sim is showing. What do you think? He's like, yeah, that's about right. So my simulations showed that about just a little over 30% of all human activity within a currency-based economy, all human activity, okay? That means from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, on the average, across the spectrum of every person in the U.S., about 30% of all of your efforts are fully dedicated to taking care and dealing with money. So think about banks, right? The number of banks that there are, the number of financial institutions, the number of credit agencies. That all plays into the calculus here, right? And then on individual levels, right? The time that you take, the money you spend to hire a CPA to take care of your taxes, the time you spend preparing your taxes, just going to the store and purchasing whatever it is that you need. There is a fraction of that time that is specifically dedicated to the transfer, to paying for your products, to dealing with the registers, the cashier, right? Whatever the case is. 30% of everything that you do is fully dedicated to simply upholding our current economy. 1/3 of everything that you do is dedicated to ensuring that the economy continues to work. Anyway, so yeah, the marshmallow tax. I mean, think of how much energy has been wasted trying to determine whether or not marshmallows are technically food or candy, and what the tax is that we need to apply to the sales of marshmallows. This is a big thing. It is so much time and energy wasted on whether or not we need to tax marshmallows. Big marshmallows, are big marshmallows food, or are they candy? Are small marshmallow cream, is that food or candy? Or is that a baking good? And this is something that happens about every 5 years. There's a big thing about marshmallows. Wow, what an incredible waste of human resources. They're marshmallows. I mean, come on. Okay, so that's it for this. Thank you for watching. I'm going to leave a few links in the description. Please go ahead and check out Manila Society, Kindness Rebellion, Magnova, Communivate, and yeah, good times. If you have not yet, please subscribe, like this if you found it interesting on any level, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Take care. Bye.